Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and after last week's Dynamite, we were left with so many questions. For example, who will Cody's mystery opponent be? What will Death Triangle get up to next? And is Jon Moxley okay after being thrown off the stage? Because that looked really sore. Oh, and also the big question that I forgot. Who on earth is the Exalted One? And will WrestleMania be Well, some of those questions were answered on this week's Dynamite, but how good was the show? There's only one way to find out, and that's by assigning each individual segment a lovely individual grade. That's right, it's time for AEW Dynamite Graded. We start things off with Cody versus Ortiz, and immediately one of our questions is answered as partway through the match, first minute or so, Jake the Snake Roberts comes through the crowd, sits in the front row, and with him is Lance Archer. That's him then, that's the mystery opponent. I didn't think it would be revealed so soon, but to be fair, he got a good reception from the crowd. Cody's doing well at first, but Santana gets involved from the outside to turn the momentum of the match in his tag partner's favour, snagging Cody's leg from outside, hitting him with a cheap shot while Ortiz has got the referee distracted, all of the classic horrible heelish things. Also in my notes here, just felt like I should point out, Ortiz dances like Val Venis a lot, which is an interesting strategy. Let's see if that pays off for him. Santana tries to get involved again, but this time Cody has a big equalizer in the form of his wife, Brandy Rhodes, who takes off her belt and whips Santana with it as he is trying to get involved in the match. And he sells it really well, as you would if you were whipped in the back with a belt, unless you're Cody and it's the first one or two whips in the back with a belt. And then as it progresses, you'd sell progressively more, and eventually it would lead to a very dramatic and heart-wrenching close to an episode of Dynamite. But that's all in the past, and this is all about the future. Let's move on. Cody finally makes his big fiery babyface comeback. He hits a suicide dive on Santana, who's threatening on Anderson on the outside. He grabs Ortiz, suplex onto the steel ramp, and it's all looking like Cody's gonna win. But then Lance Archer begins to step over the guardrail, but Jake the Snake Roberts talks him out of it and he steps back and they leave. Ooh, very intriguing. I think when it comes to that showdown between Cody and Lance Archer, it's just going to be two guys stalling for ages while their respective managers give them advice on what not to do. And I'm all for that because I love psychology in wrestling. Cody goes for the crossroads, Ortiz escapes, so Cody switches strategy. He starts targeting Ortiz's leg and finally picks up the win with the figure 4 leg lock. But of course, Santana cheap shots Cody immediately after the bell, and then Arn Anderson gets in the ring, and Santana and Ortiz are like, right, okay, fine, we'll back off. And then Kenny Omega and Matt Jackson run down to save the day. Far too late. They're already running away. Arn was enough, guys. Arn was threatening enough, so don't know what you're doing out here, really. As the Elite are stood in the ring, Jericho pops up on the Tron and reveals that he, Sammy Guevara, and Jake Hager have battered Nick Jackson backstage and trapped him under one of those metal shutters. And also Jericho hypes the Blood and Guts match in 2 weeks. Don't forget, that's in 2 weeks' time. This gets a B grade. It was a decent start to the show. The Lance Archer reveal may have come a bit too soon for my liking, but I enjoy that it is Lance Archer himself, and it was all decent. Yeah, no real complaints here. Nick gets slowly rescued from the metal shutter, loaded into an ambulance, and Cody and Matt Jackson follow him to the local hospital. It's just called a hospital. Moving swiftly on to tag team action as Kris Statlander teams with Hikaru Shida to take on Nyla Rose, the women's champion of course, and B. Priestley. She's back, and the heels rush the faces at the bell. Boo! There's a lot of aggression early on between Nyla Rose and Hikaru Shida because commentary point out that Shida is currently the #1 ranked woman in the division, so Nyla sees her as the bigger threat, and they hit each other with a lot of big strikes. It all makes sense. Interesting double team move at one point as well, as Hikaru Shida grabs Kris Statlander and suplexes her pretty hard into B. Priestley, who's draped over one of the turnbuckles. I assume Statlander's fine with it. Yeah, she's fine with it. She's an alien, She's alright with weird stuff. There's more good teamwork a little bit later on as Statlander pulls Hikaru Shida out of the way of Nyla's big jumping attack with her opponent draped over the top rope, the big jumping knee thing. But Nyla gets the win anyway, cutting off Hikaru Shida's comeback with a big spear and the beast bomb for the 1-2-3. But as the heels celebrate, B. Priestley attacks Nyla Rose and holds the belt aloft as if to say, I'm your next challenger. Now, I don't know if she will be her next challenger because obviously she's not been on Dynamite for quite a long time and won't have racked up the right amount of wins to be a viable challenger for that title, but I guess she's announced her intention to go for the belt. Let's say that. This gets a B- grade. It wasn't the most exciting match we've seen in AEW's women's division, but it was a very effective one. Effective at reshuffling the women's division and kind of beginning to introduce a new challenger into the mix. It surprised me, to be fair, because I thought that Hikaru Shida would win for her team, pinning B Priestley, and that would build to a shot against Nyla Rose, the champion. But instead, Nyla Rose just beat Hikaru Shida, and then a new challenger was established. Now, I saw a lot of people critical of this because B obviously rarely appears in AEW, but I think this is only the beginning of that, and she'll pick up a few wins here and there, at least in theory. That's what I hope happens. Next up, we get a video package with Christopher Daniels mocking the style and presentation of the Dark Order's usual video packages, and the big message throughout this is that he believes there is no Exalted One, none at all, and it's all a smokescreen and a ruse to distract everybody from the fact that the Dark Order only benefits Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. There's no Exalted One. Uh-oh, Kris. Daniel says he's so confident that he's right that he will challenge Uno and Grayson to a pair of singles matches wherever they want, on Dynamite, on Dark, on pay-per-view, and when no Exalted One shows up to help them out, he'll be proven right and there's no Exalted One. Uh-oh, Kris, uh-oh. And he ends by saying, screw the Dark Order, they suck. Uh-oh, Kris. Uh-oh, Kris. This gets a B grade. It was well delivered and well produced, but Daniels is the stupidest of all the stupid baby faces. Oh, Christopher, you're going to get absolutely decimated, mate. What are you doing? Next up, six-man tag team action as Jurassic Express, Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Marco Stunt take on the team of MJF, The Butcher, and The Blade, accompanied by The Bunny and also Wardlow. This match has just classic japes to start off as MJF bullies Marco Stunt, pushing him down and everything. Then he turns around to gloat and he doesn't see Marco Stunt tag in Luchasaurus, and Luchasaurus gives him a fright when he turns around, because the joke is that Luchasaurus is far more imposing than Marco Stunt. It's classic comedy. It's classic stuff. Slapstick. There is also a huge bump. It takes place during the commercial break, but we see a replay of it when we come back to live action of The Butcher just grabbing Marco's Stunt on the outside, hoisting him into the air whether he wants to or not, and just chokeslam. I think it was a chokeslam, just chokeslamming him right onto the apron. The benefit of Marco's Stunt, right? A lot of people say, oh, he's too small, it's not believable that he can wrestle. The benefit, the obvious upside of Marco's Stunt is that he can generate tremendous sympathy by bumping and selling, because he's so small and lightweight. You can just chuck him wherever you want and he'll make you look like an absolute beast. I think it's really effective. At one stage, Luchasaurus is isolated for quite a while, but he goes to make the hot tag, so MJF and The Blade both dive on one of his legs each to stop him from getting across the ring, but it's Luchasaurus, so he just walks with them across the ring, showing tremendous leg strength, I must add, and gets the hot tag to Jungle Boy, who then runs wild in lovely babyface fashion. Jungle Boy, right, so in Jurassic Express's matches, often it's Luchasaurus who's the hot tag, and he comes in and he throws his big martial arts kicks, but Jungle Boy's hot tag here was actually really excellent. There's a big dive party with the baby faces flying everywhere. Even Luchasaurus gets involved, but he comes up limping. I'm not sure if he picked up that knock during that dive or earlier on in the match and I just didn't see it, or whether he's just selling. I really hope it's just selling, because obviously we don't want Luchasaurus to be injured again. He's a really valuable member of the roster and seems like a really nice guy. So I don't want that to be a real injury, please. And if it is, then hopefully you can get well soon, mate. But he bravely carries on and gets into it with The Butcher, the two big men knocking each other down. That's a little entertaining portion of the match. Two of the biggest guys on the AEW roster just going at it. Towards the end of the match, Marco Stunt stomps a mud hole in MJF, like his name is Stunning Steve Austin of the Hollywood Blondes. And the referee stops him, so he's like, I'm sorry. And then he just ducks underneath her arm and just goes for it again, stomping MJF again. The crowd obviously love it because we all hate MJF. Jungle Boy looks to come off the top rope, but the Bunny distracts him, and then I think it's the Blade from behind shoves him to the outside. Simultaneously almost, Luchasaurus is taken out behind the referee's back by Wardlow, and that leaves Marco Stunt on his own, totally exposed, and MJF gets the quick submission victory with the Salt of the Earth, his version of the Fujiwara armbar. This gets a B grade. It was cool and entertaining. It might have been a little bit more comedy than action for my liking, but I still found it a pretty enjoyable match to watch. I have seen, though, better six-man tags from Jurassic Express. Next up, Tony Schiavone, Big Tone. He's at the top of the ramp and invites Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, along for an interview. Tony Why do you keep on inviting her along? She's really mean to you. They're in, I believe, Salt Lake City this week, so Britt Baker mocks Utah for being boring and inbred and a dry state. Or she says that you can't drink here, so we'll have to cross the state line if we want to knock back a couple of cold ones. And I googled that. I was like, really? Is there a whole state in America that's dry? And apparently it's not. So, but I'm sure that maybe there's tighter regulations or something. I really don't understand. I'm sure that if you are American, please do leave an explanation for me in the comment section down below. An ignorant Brit such as myself. Chin chin, cups of tea, and all that malarkey. But Britt Baker is cut off by Big Swole. Yes, I enjoy seeing Big Swole. She comes out, and then Britt Baker says, you know what, Big Swole, the only wrestler in your household that people care about is your boyfriend. That's Cedric Alexander. But Big Swole says, well, you're wrong, because he's not my boyfriend. I'm married, baby. Oh, no. Oh, you can't be doing that. Britt Baker looks actually very offended, throws her drink in Big Swole's face, and legs it to the back. And Big Swole goes to give chase. She's stopped by a referee, so she goes through the other tunnel and is hopefully, I think, looking to cut her off at some other point in the building. But we never see. We never see if she catches her or not. I'm assuming not. This gets a B+ grade. I liked it. I thought it was refreshing to see a new feud set up in the women's division, because for a while it seems like AEW forgot that they can have more than one storyline going on in the women's division and that it doesn't have to center around that championship. Or the Nightmare Collective. Oh, I forgot about them. By the way, just while I speak about the Nightmare Collective, where's Mel? I feel really bad for Mel, because it seemed like she was going to be given a chance and really raise her profile in the wrestling landscape, and now it's been taken out from under her. I hope, through no fault of her own as well, I hope that Mel still gets a shot in AEW, despite, you know, her stable being immediately disbanded. Anyway, the big question coming out of this segment, I think, is whether or not the WWE mentions, the references to Cedric Alexander and Adam Cole were good or bad. I liked them. I thought they added a bit of bite to the segment, and I think when they're used sparingly, then it's fine, but your mileage may vary. You might have hated it. Next up, more six-man tag team action as Joey Janela teams with Private Party to take on Death Triangle, Pac, Pentagon, and Phoenix. And I am getting down to Death Triangle's music. Getting down. If I could take that back, I would. Good luck to the baby faces, by the way. Good luck to Joey Janela and Private Party in this match, because there is no way they're winning this one. It's Death Triangle's first big match as a proper official collective, and I'm just not certain it's going to go well for them. But they do make a good go of it, though, Janela and Private Party. They really do. I mean, they're hitting moves like the kind of a version of the Gin and Juice, but into a Death Valley driver from Janela. Mark Quinn hits a gorgeous shooting star press onto Phoenix. Phoenix is in trouble, but Pentagon comes in to break it up at 2. Then we see some great triple team action from Death Triangle. At one point, Pac's on the floor on the canvas with his feet stuck into the back of one of his opponents, and then, you know, his other tag team partners are flying off the top and just crushing them Phoenix with a big stomp and creating like a sandwich in the middle of Pac's legs. If you watch them, you'll see what it looked good. My description didn't do it justice, but it did look good. But then the faces answer with more triple team stuff of their own. There's so much going on in this match. I really did struggle to keep up at times. Isaiah Cassidy jumping off the back, I think, of Pac while he's held in the Death Valley driver position on Janela's shoulders on the apron, and Cassidy jumps off onto the other opponents on the outside, and then Janela hits the Death Valley driver on the apron, the hardest part of the ring, and I need a breather. This is really difficult. But quite predictably, Death Triangle work their way back into the match and do pick up the victory, with the Lucha Bros hitting their big double team package power driver stomp finisher onto Joey Janela, and then Phoenix hitting the ropes and just wiping out Private Party on the outside, and then Pac putting the finishing touches on with a big black arrow to Joey Janela, and that's enough for the big victory for Death Triangle. The heels are not done yet, and they put on the Death Triangle, according to Excalibur, their big weird twisty triple submission on all three men. They put that on their opponents in the middle of the ring. A finishing move named after the same thing as your tag team name or your trio's name. That's some balls, that, on Death Triangle. We're so good, our finisher is the name of our actual name. Viking experience. The heels keep the submission locked in for a bit, but they are run off by Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. Walked off by Orange Cassidy, ran off by the Best Friends. This gets an A- grade. I thought it was a really fun and fast-paced match, and even though the winners were very predictable, I thought it injected the show with a real sense of urgency that was kind of missing elsewhere, if I'm being honest. Next up, we get a little video package of various social media folks, YouTubers, influencers, and just fans as well, all attempting to audition to be Shawn Spears' tag team partner. Now, this wasn't long enough to grade, but I should mention it because Simon Miller was there saying, "Why should I be your partner? He Spears. What? No, he was better than that. He was a lot better than that. In fact, Simon and many of the lads in this video package looked like they were in tremendous shape. So I know that the comments are going to be like, Jack, why don't you audition to be Shawn Spears' tag team? I'm not a wrestler, but I can't be outdone by Simon Miller. So what I will say now is, Shawn Spears, I am nowhere near good enough to be your tag team partner, and that's totally fine by me. Pleasure doing business with you. Next up, we get one of those JR sit-down interviews that took place, before the show. And it's with Jon Moxley this time, the AEW World Champion. The absent World Champion, I should point out. And Moxley does admit at the start that he is really banged up after the Inner Circle's attack last week. JR mentions Jake Hager, and Moxley says, yeah, he's hit me harder than anyone ever has, and that's really impressive if you look at my track record, but I'm not scared of him, so bring it on, Jake Hager, if you want some. So they seem to be setting up Jake Hager as the next #1 contender, or the next challenger for that title, or at least, I guess, the next opponent for Moxley, be it title or non-title. Moxley vows to be there at the Blood and Guts event and says, you know what, even though the Inner Circle are all tied up with the Elite, they better keep one eye on their blind side, because I'm going to be there and I'm going to make them pay. This gets a B+ grade. It was just good stuff. Moxley's always good at this kind of thing. And you know what? We criticize him on commentary, we all do. But JR, in these situations, is absolutely superb. He always brings the right level of gravitas. And finally, the main event, Hangman Page and a mystery opponent taking on Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. But the mystery opponent isn't a mystery opponent by the time we reach the main event, because a few segments ago, Dustin Rhodes was getting all painted up backstage and getting interviewed, and he said, I'm ready to fight. I'm annoyed because Nick Jackson got jumped earlier in the show. I want to fight. You know what, Hangman? I'm your mystery partner, whether you like it or not. And I'm thinking, what if Hangman had like a mystery guy all excited and ready to go? What if it was CM Punk? And then Dustin's gone, don't worry, Phil, you take the night off. I've got this. No, in all fairness, even though the mystery was kind of ruined a little bit earlier in the show, I'm never again seeing Dustin Rhodes in a match. He is consistently excellent in the ring. So, especially by the way, in these tag team situations with younger guys like Hangman Page. The Inner Circle take control at the start, and I should point out that Santana, Ortiz, and Hager are all lurking outside the ring to help them out should they need that help. Jericho takes a beer from a fan at one point and walks around going, I'm a cowboy, woo, which is really funny, especially when Hangman then takes the beer off him, knocks him down, and downs it himself like a good babyface should. The heels dominate for a while, but then Hangman gets the hot tag and just starts to run wild, and I love Hangman's hot tags at the minute. I talked up Jungle Boy's hot tag earlier on tonight, as if this is the show, earlier on in this video, and Hangman's was really good too. At one stage, Hangman has Jericho ready for the buckshot lariat, but Jericho avoids it and locks in the walls, and the crowd were really hot to see that buckshot lariat on Chris Jericho, but now he's obviously got the walls locked in, or the lion tamer, whatever you want to call it, but Dustin's in to break things up and keep the match going. A little bit later on, Hangman actually takes Jericho out of contention outside of the ring with almost a Dean Ambrose move. Not a Jon Moxley move, no, a Dean Ambrose move. So we all remember the wacky line, but remember the other two that he used to do with it. He used to run up to the corner, plant one foot on the bottom turnbuckle, and then turn around and run back at his opponent. And he used to do another one, which Hangman did a sort of variation of here, where he'd be on the outside of the ring, his opponent would whip him towards the ring, and he'd kind of scoot around the bottom rope and the apron and then come back out and then hit them. Yeah, Hangman kind of did that, but he made it look alright. It was very Dean Ambrose. Back in the ring, Dustin hits a huge destroyer on Sammy Guevara. Sammy sells it wonderfully. The momentum makes him pop back up to his feet. He's wobbly. Hangman comes in the ring, lariat, 1, 2, 3, and the baby faces win. But immediately, all the other members of the Inner Circle jump in the ring, and we get a big Inner Circle gang beatdown. And on commentary, they're saying, well, they're out of allies because Nick's injured, Nick's at the hospital, and Cody and Matt went with him. What's going to happen? Well, it turns out they're not completely out of allies, because here comes Kenny Omega. Yeah! He's got a broken hand, and he's on his own, and it doesn't go well. But now here comes Cody! I guess he got back from the hospital in time. He gets in the ring, but again, it's not enough. Jake Hager takes him down, and he just becomes another victim of this beatdown. Hager grabs Hangman Page and gets him in that head and arm triangle choke and, drags him up to the top of the stage. They're gonna do what they did to Jon Moxley last week at the end of Dynamite and slam him off the stage. They get him up in the powerbomb position, but here comes Matt Jackson to save the day. I guess he was parking in the car. He saves the day, he takes down everybody temporarily, and then he flips off Hangman, and Hangman's like, oh. But it's what Hangman did to Matt Jackson last week, so You see what they're doing here? It looks like the faces might win the day, but instead Jericho comes along with a steel chair, bang, bang, takes them both down. Cody gets suplexed by Ortiz on the ramp, revenge for earlier in the night, and all the baby faces are just lying all around the arena. And the heels all pose at the top of the ramp, and they seem to have the momentum, that most crucial of factors, heading into that blood and guts match in 2 weeks' time. This only gets a B grade, I'm afraid, and normally Dynamite's main events do get a higher grade from me, I think. But yeah, this only gets a B grade. I thought it was a decent match and everything, but it was very, very similar to last week's ending. And I get the point of it. I get that they want to build the heel dominance and ramp up the tension heading into blood and guts. But yeah, it was very similar to last week, wasn't it? So hopefully next week there's a bit of a different ending to the show. And then the week after that, of course, we get the big the big blood and guts match. Overall then, this gets a B grade, which is still fine. It's still a fine show, but not quite the high level that we've come to expect from AEW Dynamite. In fact, I don't want to say this, but I got the impression that this was a little bit of a filler show heading in to the big one in 2 weeks' time. Now, I understand that not every show can knock it out the park, and you do have to sometimes take a bit of a step back, but I think that's when you really have to focus on making other elements of the show excellent, not just the main event scene, not just Cody's match or whatever. I still think it was fine. It wasn't quite the same level that we're used to in recent weeks. The question now is, will next week be the same, or will they ramp up the quality once again and really pick up steam heading into that big blood and guts show? Thanks very much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you very soon.